apart from the fact that my week imploded, but like I rode off another car. Fucking however many years of driving since I was 18, I've never hit another vehicle or been hit by another vehicle. And then suddenly, after all this time, and also 10 plus years of driving in the city, the same route nearly every single day, not a scratch, and then 2 in 6 months.
She's not at fault.
I am not at fault. Wasn't the first time back in January. Not now.
Just want to clarify that. Charlotte is a very good driver.
You know what? I'm certain there's certainly better out there, but I have my head on a swivel.
Yeah.
My dad used to be at one point in his army career an army driving instructor. So that's what I was taught by.
Yeah.
So I consider myself like pretty aware. I shoulder check. I do all the things you're supposed to do. But sometimes a distracted teenager gets the better of you and there's nothing you can do. It was a distracted teenager the first time. It was a distracted teenager this time. It happened in the same place, in the same lane, at the same time of day. Just one was in winter, one was in summer.
I'm glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, a little sore, but all good.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, since I was in a car accident, it almost makes me feel better about like the car accident that is the series we're about to get into.
It really is.
A car accident in the sense that you know it's awful and you kind of know what's going to happen, but you literally can't look away.
No, and this is a head-on collision of a story.
100%. Good segue, by the way.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Dina. Welcome to the Grim Curriculum.
If you guys thought that you were going to get a wee break from all the horror and nastiness that was Richard Chase, well, you're getting a break from him, but you're not getting a break from the horror because our latest topic is full of that. Incest, and of course, murder.
It has even been described as one of the most awful stories to come out of the UK. And one of the reasons that I'm excited to talk about this story with you as someone who is from the UK is you have that insight on how it's seen over there versus how it's seen here, because this is it's a better known story for sure among people who are into true crime.
Yes.
But they're not as well known as, your Ted Bundy, your John Wayne Gacy, things like that. But they are horrific.
Well, and I grew up where it was like kind of used as like a boogeyman almost. Before I even knew what they did or anything, it was like behave or Fred and Rose West are going to come and get you. And so I was aware of this sort of the myth, the legend, if you will, before I even knew the grisly details. But then, for example, Paige actually reached out to me a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about it. She's like, we just watched the gnarliest documentary on Netflix. Like, you guys need to cover this on the pod. And I was like, who? And she's like, Fred and Rose West. I was like, well,
we're on it.
We're on it and you're in luck. So,
and it's funny because I have a lot of people in my life who are into true crime. And so they always ask me, like, what should I watch? What's good? Whatever. And I keep telling them about this story, and not one person that I've talked to knew who they were.
Well, if you haven't heard of them, you're about to learn a lot today.
You sure are.
And over the next little while.
Today, we are starting our series on Fred and Rose West, a married couple who acted out their fantasies with innocent people, including their own children.
Their story has captivated people since their crimes were revealed decades ago, and has most recently, like I said, been talked about on the Netflix series Fred and Rose West, a British horror story. And I mean, that really just like ties it in a little bow and it is a British horror story.
And it's a fantastic documentary. I was just telling Charlotte, the one thing I didn't love was that they kind of start near the end of the story. They don't explore the beginning and what made them into who they were, because they both have horrific upbringings, but it does include a lot of newly released police interviews that they play throughout, and those kind of give you an insight with just especially with Fred, what kind of a person he was.
And not good is the answer to that question. Fred and Rose are unique for many reasons, but one of them is the fact that they, of course, acted together. And not only that, there are many who believe that Rose was just as guilty, if not more guilty, than her husband.
Like always, there are still those out there who claim that Rose was just a victim.
We're going to go ahead and say that we strongly disagree with that opinion. And by the end of the series, you guys probably will too. I hope you do.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. If you're I don't know, a normal person, normal is such a ambiguous word these days, but if you're a good person and have a good sense of morality, I hope you will agree with us by the end.
Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but one of the things that they talk about on the documentary is originally they thought it was all Fred because he was trying to spare her.
Of course, yes.
And then there's a point where they're looking at timelines and they're like, oh, this murder happened during this time. Fred was in jail, Rose.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the funniest things that I just have to mention is he, for a very long time, defended her. You know, she wasn't involved. She didn't do anything. And he was so excited to see her during the trial.
Yeah.
He was in love with her. He was so happy. And he gets to the trial and he sees her and she won't even look at him.
Rough. But you know what? They deserve it. I
They
have
do.
no sympathy whatsoever. Let us begin with Frederick Walter Stephen West, born on September 29th, 1941, in the village of Muchmarkel. He was the first surviving child of Walter Stephen West and Daisy Hannah Hill. At a young age, he was described as a beautiful little boy with huge blue eyes and blonde hair.
It is fair to say that his boyish good looks would not last. It's said that Fred would grow up with a lot of his mother's physical traits, which were not in his favor.
Oof.
His blonde hair turned brown and was often unkempt. One of the interviews I saw, it was like this old detective or something, this old British detective, and he's like, yeah, he ended up looking just like her with her big mouth and her big nose.
Holy
I was like,
cow.
whoa!
Straight out of the gates, my guy.
Savage.
The Wests came from a long line of farm laborers and were heavily affected by the difficulties of life in post-war Britain. In 1946, the family moved to Moorcourt Cottage on the outskirts of Muchmarkel. Fred's father worked as a milking herdsman and harvest hand. Their modest home had no power and was heated by just a small fire.
They lived a highly impoverished and difficult life. Despite this, Daisy would become pregnant another 8 times in the period of 10 years, and 6 of those children survived.
Oh. His father was said to be a strict man, and his mother was overprotective, especially of Fred. He was considered to be a mama's boy, and from a young age, all of the children were expected to work hard on the farm. This instilled a strong work ethic in Fred, but the need to earn a living also caused him to develop a lifelong habit of petty theft.
Fred was described by classmates as being very dull, essentially illiterate, and scruffy. He had an aptitude for woodworking and art, which he seemed to enjoy.
Overall, school did not seem to be something that Fred really liked. He was constantly in trouble and was subject to regular canings. Whenever Daisy heard about this happening, she would storm into the school and scream at his teachers for punishing her favorite son. The other students would see this, and upon describing Daisy as, I quote, overweight and unattractive, and they would make fun of Fred for being a mama's boy. He left school at the age of 15 to continue working on the farm.
Fred would later claim that he was sexually abused by his mother from a young age. It was reported that his sisters were often the target of his father's sexual advances, and that he believed since they were his children, he was allowed to do whatever he wanted with them. And this is a belief that Fred would carry on to his own children later in life.
I'm afraid this story is one of the apple does not fall far from the tree, unfortunately. At 16 years old, Fred realized that if he wanted girls to like him, he had to make himself more presentable. He fixed up his hair and tried to wear nicer clothing. He was very pushy when he wanted a girl and was described by many to be aggressive. Oh, I don't like that.
It's so gross.
I hate it.
Fred and his brother John would often frequent a youth club. When he saw a girl that he liked, he would approach her and fondle her.
Oh, goody.
Every now and again, a girl would fall for his advances, but would often describe the encounter as unsatisfactory because Fred always prematurely ejaculated.
Woof. To be a scruffy, ugly little kid and a one-pump chump. Rough. The following year, Fred was in a serious motorcycle accident that left him in a coma for a week. His leg was broken and he underwent surgery to have a metal plate inserted into it. This left him with a lifelong limp. He also suffered from a fractured skull and broken arm. When he woke up from the coma, his personality had changed. He was prone to emotional outbursts and fits of rage at the slightest provocation. And this is very common with a frontal lobe injury. And we've talked about it before. It's one of those things that, again, if you have a frontal lobe head injury, doesn't make you a serial killer,
Mhm.
but it is a diagnosis that a lot of them have in common.
Absolutely. After his accident, Fred met 16-year-old Catherine Bernadette Costello, also known as Rena. Rena had been in trouble with the police since she was a child. Like Fred, she was a known thief. The two hit it off very quickly, and Rena even tattooed Fred's name on her arm with a sewing needle.
Damn.
The relationship didn't last long, and eventually Rena moved back to her hometown in Scotland.
Fred wasn't overly upset by this because he quickly set his sights on another girl at youth club. The two were standing on a fire escape when he put his hand up her skirt. She reacted to this by pushing him. Fred fell off the fire escape and landed on the ground, hit his head, and lost consciousness.
So that is two
Two
head
head
injuries.
injuries.
It's never a good sign of things to
Mm-mm.
come, and when he woke up, his temper was even worse.
It was also around this time that Fred likely impregnated his 13-year-old sister, Kitty. She told her mother about him and admitted that he had been sexually assaulting her for months. This was reported to the police. When they interviewed Fred, he admitted to sexually assaulting numerous underage girls and asked them, in all seriousness, doesn't everybody do that?
He was legitimately shocked that they had a problem with this.
Well, I mean, when dad is also doing the same thing
Yeah.
and seemingly that seems very normal, why wouldn't he have the same opinion?
His mother was obviously upset with him, but offered to testify in his defense. And I feel like the last few series that we've done about horrific people, there is often a problematic mother.
100%. I mean, let's go back. We have Ed Gein, we have Ed Kemper, we have Richard Chase, and now we have Fred West.
Be good moms.
Be better to your kids, for God's sakes.
Before Kitty was set to testify, she said that she had changed her mind and refused to speak about what had happened. The case collapsed and Fred was let go. His family disowned him and he moved in with his Aunt Violet and Uncle Ernie. About a year later, he would reconcile with his parents and move back home.
In September of 1962, Fred and Rena began dating again. She likely returned because her parents had disowned her for becoming pregnant with a mixed-race child while she was back in Scotland. Fred attempted to convince her to get an abortion.
An abortion that he offered to perform himself in a nearby forest.
Oh, God.
According to him, he had become experienced in such procedures.
Oh, so he's a doctor now.
So there was no proof that he had done this before, but he had everything he needed for it.
Oh, good. Just winging it in the forest.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Rena agreed, and they got a friend of theirs to keep an eye out for anyone who would interrupt them.
Oh my God. Luckily, they were seen by a passerby who called the police before Fred could begin the procedure. That makes it sound so medical and technical. What he was about to do was probably kill her.
Oh, no doubt.
Eventually, Fred agreed that he would help raise her child, and a couple of months later, the two became husband and wife. Together, they moved to Scotland. Nothing says romance like performing a knitting needle abortion in a forest.
Yeah.
That's not a sentence I ever thought
It's
I'd
all
say.
about trust.
Oh my God.
I hate it.
Rough.
His parents were under the impression that the baby was his. And in March of 1963, Rena gave birth to a little girl whom they named Charmaine. Fred had Rena write to his mother saying that the baby had tragically died during childbirth, so they adopted a mixed-race child instead.
So if the incest wasn't enough for you, we just have racism as a sprinkle on the cake so far.
And this whole pregnancy is problematic within itself because
Oh,
she's very
yes,
young.
absolutely.
The man who got her pregnant,
He was like a cab driver
he
or
was
something.
a bus driver and he was
Ugh.
much older.
Oh, this is just nasty from all the way through. The marriage, well, as you might expect, went quickly south. Fred began treating Rena like a sex object and would demand various types of rough sexual acts from her multiple times a day.
It was during this time that Fred became an ice cream truck driver.
Oh my God.
To him, it was the perfect job, especially considering he now had access to countless underage girls who he often assaulted. In 1964, Fred and Rena had another child who they named Anna Marie. They hired a woman named Issa McNeil to be their nanny. She would describe Rena as a considerate mother who was struggling to raise two children with little help from Fred.
Man, if you didn't already get kind of creeped out from the sound of an ice cream truck from, various horror
Mhm.
movies that have utilized that particular sound, the fact that Fred West purposefully got that job because it put him in contact with kids
Mhm.
should give you the heebie jeebies like nothing
It's
else.
the boogeyman driving an ice cream truck.
Yes, it's when people see like teachers or cops or firefighters or nurses being horrible people, it's always like, "My god." But it's like, yeah, they're horrible people who put themselves in those positions of power
Mhm.
to affect the vulnerable it puts them in contact with. It
Yeah.
makes total sense. Issa introduced Fred and Rena to 16-year-old Anna McFall. Her boyfriend had just been killed in an accident, and the grieving young woman began spending her time at their home on a regular basis. It was around this time that Fred accidentally ran over a young boy with his ice cream truck. He was not prosecuted for this. He got away with it scot-free like nothing came of it.
And to clarify, the kid died.
Yes, he died. It wasn't just that as terrible as it would be either way, he didn't knock him over.
No.
Like this kid died by getting hit by an ice cream truck.
And the police was essentially like, "Oh, it happens."
It's an accident. Whoops. Oh my lord. The 60s. Fred was also alleged to father more children with two different mothers while he was still in Scotland.
And this would not be uncommon for Fred because it's legitimately hard to keep up with how many children he fathers.
I wonder if there's any kids out there. They'd be grown up, obviously,
Mhm.
now. I wonder if there's any folks out there who perhaps have him as their father and don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, awful. Fred, Rena, Anna, Anna Marie, and Charmaine all moved back to Gloucester where he got a job at a slaughterhouse. Ice cream truck? Slaughterhouse.
It's chain of events.
I mean, tomato, potato.
he was a driver for the slaughterhouse.
Okay, that is a connection. I guess he's not working completely in the abattoir section. Rena, seeing her husband's blatant infidelity, began her own affair with a man named John McLaughlin. Fred caught the two in an embrace and punched Rena. John, upon seeing this, punched Fred in return.
Fred drew a knife and grazed John's stomach. John once again punched Fred, who quickly backed down. The two continued their affair, and on one occasion, John beat Fred mercilessly after seeing numerous bruises on Rena. The amount of times that John beats Fred up is fantastic.
I love that for John, but this is an entirely toxic, messy, polyamorous,
Mhm.
I don't know, circle of nastiness,
Mm.
all in all.
Also, John, interestingly enough, also a bus driver. She had a type.
I guess so.
He also beat Fred up after he saw him hit Charmaine over the head after she asked him for an ice cream.
His
So
child.
she went to, well, he never considered Charmaine actually his
Oh,
child.
well, yeah.
So he was at the ice cream truck and he's giving out ice cream to all these kids. And
Yeah.
his daughter comes up to him and says, "Can I have one?" And he just beats her, hits her on the head,
Oh
and
my
starts screaming at her. And
God.
John sees this and beats the shit out of Fred again.
We love this for John.
Yeah.
Rena soon became fed up with all of her husband's antics and moved back to Scotland without her children. She returned soon after in an attempt to get them back. When she arrived at Fred's house, she was shocked to see that he was now in a sexual relationship with Anna and that they had been living together with Issa.
All of the women lived together with Fred, who was constantly controlling and abusing all three of them. It was reported that around this time, he also began sexually abusing Charmaine.
In an attempt to escape the abuse, Rena phoned John and begged for his help. Issa agreed to come with them, but by this point, Anna McFall was so infatuated with Fred that she refused to leave. This was a decision that would ultimately end in her murder at the hands of, you guessed it, Fred West.
Anna told Fred about the plan, and when John arrived, he beat Fred up once again.
Like it's his job at this
he's
point.
a pro. Police were called and Rena left. Fred threatened to kill her if he ever saw her again.
Rena stayed in touch with Anna, who is now caring for Charmaine and Anna Marie. It didn't take long before Rena began resenting her due to her relationship with Fred and the treatment of her children. On one occasion, she broke back into Fred's house and stole some of his belongings. She was arrested and sentenced to 3 years probation. Steal your kids back, don't steal his things.
And that's the thing is, I'm sure there were reasons, and I think it was a control thing that he wouldn't let her take the kids.
Must be.
But she leaves multiple times. She never takes the children. And Fred, what he would do was there were periods of time where he didn't have a woman living with him.
Mm-hmm.
And during those times, he would go to social services.
Dump the kids
Yeah.
off. Yes.
And then get them back whenever he had a lady in the house.
So the ladies, in his opinion, were never there as a romantic interest. They were just to beat the shit out of and look after his kids.
Yeah.
And honestly, they weren't doing a great job at that either.
After the trial, Anna moved into a caravan, and Rena alternated between living with Fred and going back home to Scotland. Anna would write to her family as well as to Issa, saying that she wanted to continue her relationship with Fred and that he told her he was planning on divorcing Rena and marrying her instead.
Anna quickly became pregnant with Fred's child. In July of 1967, she vanished. Anna was 8 months along, and she was pressuring Fred to follow through with his promise of his divorce with Rena.
Anna was never reported missing, and her remains would not be found for decades. She would be found in 1994.
Oh my God.
Fred dismembered her and kept her fingers and toes as trophies. It was also reported that he removed the baby and dismembered it as well, and then buried the two of them together.
Now, to a lot of people, it doesn't make sense. Like, why go to the bother of brutalizing and decapitating the corpses only to bury them back together? But I think some people do say it's almost a way of caring for them, which is weird.
I disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was more carnage, and it was more of a way for him to disrespect her and her body and this baby that he didn't want born.
I mean, that sounds more than likely, honestly.
That sounds more like Fred West.
100%, because he was a monster. There is no redeeming qualities to this individual. Rena moved back in, wild considering he said he'd kill her, but anyway. And it was permanent, and according to her, for a very short time, Fred's behavior towards her improved, although he still forced her to work as a sex worker and continued his abuse of her daughter Charmaine. He eventually, again, left the two children with social services.
In January of 1968, a 15-year-old girl named Mary Bastelm was abducted from a bus stop. Many believe that Fred was responsible because he had frequented her place of work often, and witnesses also reported seeing her in his car.
Do we ever find out about her?
No.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
There are a lot of murders that were pinned on him, but that was based on the bodies that they would later find.
Got it.
So if he did kill her, which most people believe that he did, he put her body somewhere else. But he would abduct a lot of girls from bus stops. That was his thing.
So it fits his MO in that way.
And people, the last time she was seen was in his car.
Well, again, without the evidence, you could definitely argue it, but to me that seems pretty solid based on what we know about him already. The following month, Fred's mother died due to complications from a surgery. He began stealing more than ever, and as a result had a very hard time keeping down a job. He eventually found one working as a bakery delivery driver.
He likes to drive cars.
I don't want him touching my baked goods either.
No.
Get away from the food.
Or the meat. Or the ice. I mean, all the food.
Get away. Stop it.
On November 29th, 1968, Fred West met his future wife and partner in crime, Rose Letts. She was 15. He was 27.
And isn't it wild that we're talking about the story of Fred and Rose West, and yet Rose has only just been introduced into this story, and we've already seen the carnage that has led up to it.
And she just turned 15.
Just.
Like that day.
Ugh, that's so not cool. You know what? It is a different time.
No.
It's not cool then. It's not cool now. It wasn't cool in 1700. I'm sorry.
It's gross.
Absolutely not.
Now, before we go any further, we're going to go back a few years and talk about Rose's childhood, which, like Fred's, was filled with its own challenges.
Rosemary Pauline Letts was born on November 29th, 1953, in Devon, England, to parents Bill and Daisy.
And yes, if you are keeping track, both of them had mothers named Daisy.
What a weird coinky-dink. Bill was a schizophrenic who was described as a violent man who demanded complete obedience from his children. The family was consistently short on money due to his own inability to hold down a job.
Daisy, on the other hand, suffered from severe depression. By the time she had become pregnant with Rose, the couple had already had 3 daughters and a son. Their marriage was tumultuous, to say the least, with their son Andrew later saying this about his childhood.
If he felt we were in bed too late, he would throw a bucket of cold water over us. He would order us to dig the garden, and that meant the whole garden. And then he would inspect it like an army officer, and if he was not satisfied, we would have to do it all over again. We were not allowed to speak and play like normal children. If we were noisy, he would go for us with a belt or a chunk of wood. He would beat you black and blue until Mum got in between us. Then she would get a good hiding. Not great on either side here.
No wonder she's depressed.
No kidding.
In 1953, while she was pregnant with Rose, Daisy was hospitalized for the depression and was treated with electroshock therapy and gave birth shortly after. Doctors would say that the effect of this on Rose was unknown, but she began to show concerning signs from a very young age.
Yeah, I would have to look at the literature for 2025, but something tells me that electroshock therapy is not probably the best for an unborn child.
No,
Just getting zapped through your mother's body.
it's like, to me, I understand that in different times, blah blah blah, and that was like the thing to do.
Mhm.
But that they would do this on a heavily pregnant woman is
Wild.
insanity.
Yeah, this is like horror asylum
Mhm.
levels of shenanigans. Rose would often rock herself in her crib. If she was put into her stroller without the brakes on, she would rock so violently that she would be pushed around the room. And as she grew older, she would rock her head back and forth for hours until she was barely conscious.
Yeah, she's fine.
That's fine. Kids just be bobbling all over the place, right?
Her parents would comment that she was slow and gave her the nickname Dozy Rosie.
Oh, that's a nickname that's going to stick with you, especially when it comes from your own parents.
While she lacked intelligence in some sense of the word, she was smart enough to quickly make herself her father's favorite to avoid beatings.
Rose did not perform well in school and was often mocked by the other children for being overweight. She would attack anyone who insulted her and essentially had no friends. As a teenager, she was promiscuous and would often walk around the house naked. Hello, Richard Chase.
Mm-hmm.
On more than one occasion, she was said to get into her brother's beds and touch them inappropriately. How is it that two people with such fucked up childhoods in very similar ways end up finding each other?
Right?
The universe really brings people together.
Something that I thought about a lot was, if the two of them hadn't met,
Mm.
would they have killed? Fred,
Well,
absolutely.
I mean, technically, he already has.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Fred's off to a real bad start.
Rose, maybe, or she would have been killed.
I think she would have gotten herself into a really shitty situation where unfortunately she would have ended up on drugs or something like that in really really bad circumstances, and that either she would have ended up hurting someone or herself, or someone would have ended up hurting her.
I compared them. They're very, very different than these two, but the relationship between Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka,
Mhm.
where people say, Bernardo would have eventually killed because he was already
Oh, he
out
was
sexually. Yeah,
escalating.
he was
Yeah.
assaulting people, but
Would
Carla
Carla?
Homolka may not have.
No, probably not. She might have been a nasty, horrible person her entire life.
Yeah,
But she might not have.
he was kind of the missing link
The
for her to go
catalyst
into
for
that.
it, yeah.
But with Fred and Rose West, you have two people who very similar circumstances from the
Mhm.
get-go, and both are remarkably evil.
Yeah, they just kind of worked together. Although I would argue that they battled each other in some ways.
Yeah.
For sure. Rose's father forbade her from dating any of the local boys, and she quickly turned her attention to the older gentlemen in their town.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, probably not so gentle, to be honest.
In January of 1968, Rose and her friends were growing concerned about hearing about the disappearance of Mary Bastham. Little did she know that her future husband may have been responsible. She tried to stay away from unknown men, but soon grew bored and continued to seek companionship. On more than one occasion, she was assaulted by the men that she met.
The following year, Daisy took Rose and moved in with her daughter and husband. Without her father's supervision, Rose began sneaking out at night and having multiple relationships with different men. Her brother in law also claimed that she attempted to seduce him.
I believe it.
I mean, she's 15 and she's already on a very, very dark and dangerous
Mhm.
path. She's seeking out this attention, and he's just a man that's available and close to her at
Yeah.
that point. It wouldn't have surprised me at all had she tried to.
A few months later, she moved back in with her father, which surprised everyone. Some would claim that the two even had an incestuous relationship.
Again, it wouldn't surprise me,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
I don't like to speculate.
No, because we don't know this for
Yeah,
sure.
but it really wouldn't
It
shock me.
wouldn't shock me at all. It wasn't too long after moving in with him that Rose found herself waiting for the bus when she spotted Fred West. At first, she was unimpressed by his rugged looks, but he quickly won her over. He was able to earn her sympathy by telling her that his wife had left him and wanted to take their children, adding that he wanted to find another wife and have babies with her.
Again, she is 15, he is 27 years old.
Even for myself, can't speak for everybody, but even for myself as a 15-year-old, I would have been like, ew, get the fuck away
Yeah, who
from
are And
me.
he's a scraggly looking motherfucker
You
too.
nasty hoe, get
Yeah.
away.
And at first that was what she was grossed out by him. He's this older guy, he's unattractive, he's aggressive, but he has this way of charming vulnerable people.
I guess it wouldn't work on us because either we have the experience and the age to know better, and also
Mhm.
we talk about this for, funsies. So we have this app shield up, if you will, to be like, ew, no, step away, nasty. But when you're young and vulnerable and already seeking the attention of older men, if he fits the bill for her.
Yeah, because he's saying, "I wanna marry somebody."
Yeah.
There's that companionship. "You would come
Mhm.
live with me." There's that home that she doesn't have.
Yep, absolutely.
He asked her out on a date that night, and she accepted. Fred took his children back from social services, saying that he could now care for them properly. Rose visited his house often and developed a stepmother relationship with the kids.
She's barely older than his kids.
Yeah,
She's got like what, maybe 7 years on most of them?
yeah.
Jeeper.
She treated them with kindness, but this would not last. Within weeks of meeting Fred, she left her job to become the kids' nanny. He gave her enough money to convince her parents that she was still working at her old job.
A few months after, she introduced Fred to her parents. Despite how terrible of a father Bill was, he quickly saw that Fred was not a good fit for his daughter. He attempted to report him to social services, but they were overworked and nothing came from this. Rumors began to spark about their daughter living with an older man and engaging in sex work.
Fred was in and out of prison for various crimes, so Rose eventually left him. Soon after, she found out that she was
Oh
pregnant.
no.
At the age of 16, she moved in with Fred and his daughters, and the following year, she gave birth to a girl they named Heather.
Rose struggled to care for 3 children with the money problems and Fred in and out of prison, and soon her temper began to flare up. She began resenting Charmaine and Anna Marie and treated them very poorly.
According to them, they were subject to criticism and beatings regularly. Together, they would dream of their real mom coming to save them. A childhood friend of Charmaine's named Tracy would report coming to their house and seeing her naked, gagged, and standing on a chair as a form of punishment while Fred was in prison yet again.
Tragically, Rose's rage would eventually result in the death of Charmaine. It's likely that she killed the little girl during June of 1971 while Fred was incarcerated, and she stored her body in the cellar. Tracy's mother would report that she brought her daughter to visit the girl, only to be told by Rose.
She's gone to live with her mother and bloody good riddance.
When Fred was released, Anna Marie approached him about her missing sister, only to be told that their mother had picked her up. He then took her body and buried it in their yard.
And so she asks Fred, "Well, why didn't mommy take me?"
Exactly.
And he says to her, "Well, she's mixed race and you're not, so she didn't take you."
How do you, like, why? I just, speechless.
Yeah.
These poor kids who never asked to be brought into this world got brought into that fucking family.
By this point, Rena had grown increasingly concerned about the treatment of her children. She inquired about the whereabouts of Charmaine and went over to the house to confront Fred. This would be the last time she was seen alive.
And that is where we will pick up next week with part 2 of Fred and Rose West. Brutal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad to say I am quite familiar with this case.
Yeah.
And it is awful.
It is horrific. And for some reason, when I went back into researching it, I forgot how many people they killed. In my head, it was like 6.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not. It's double that, maybe more.
Just a twisted web of bad from the grandparent level all the way through, and the people that suffered because these two evil monsters collided in their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, people were already suffering because of Fred, but when him and Rose came together, it just exploded.
Yeah, it was, they liked that about each other, and they liked that they were cruel, and we're going to see that later because they really do work together in the worst sense of the word, and they just prey on the most vulnerable people that you can find.
Volatile and cruel is definitely the way I would describe them. Anywho, hope you stick around for next week for part 2.
Definitely. Also,
yes,
we have merch.
We do. We actually have a sale going on too. So if you are listening as of release on Saturday, May 31st, we have a sale going on our Threadless, thegrimcurriculum.threadless.com. And I believe there's lots of goodies on there that you can get. There's some good sales going on. It goes till June 2nd. And if you're hearing this after June 2nd, well, you can keep your ears and eyes peeled because there will be another sale coming at some point and you can go check it out anytime.
Yeah, all the designs are done by Charlotte. They are fantastic. We hope to add more designs in the future. You can get t-shirts, you can get baby onesies, you can get shower curtains, you can get pretty much anything you want.
Blankets, notebooks, mouse pads, whatever you want. And if there is a item that Threadless provides that we don't have on our stores available and you want it, just shoot us a DM on any of the socials, or you can send us an email at thegrimcurriculum@gmail.com and I will make sure it gets up there for you.
Heck yeah. Also, we have a Patreon. There is a free tier where you can get early episode reveals. The paid tiers have video versions of all of our episodes along with a Discord and other fun stuff.
Yeah.
We also give a shout out to our Grim VIPs. That is the top tier. Take it away, Charlotte.
Big, humongous thank you, as always, to the wonderful, the mantibulous. That's not a word or not the right word.
It can be.
If you know what mantibulous means, let me know. I was going to say fantabulous. The wonderful fantabulous. Mayhem Mudkip, Nova, Lisa, Brian, Kevinus Musicus, Paranoid Pop Rocks, Bob, Judy, Steven Centauri, and of course, Atlantean Jedi. Thank you, thank you.
You the bomb.
You the titty city.
Thank you all so much for listening. This has been
The Grim Curriculum. I actually have a fun space fact for us today.
Ooh.
Did you know that since 2001, all of humanity has not been present on the Earth at the same time? Because there's always at least one person in space.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Bye.
Bye.